Tennessee, Jeremy Pruitt, Donde Plowman, the NCAA. The NCAA hearing against the University of Tennessee and those other parties, it's set to begin today in Cincinnati. Why I really don't think this is going to be a very big deal, regardless of all the national hoopla that might be in store over the next 3 days. That and more here on your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, happy Wednesday and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your team every single day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Eric Kane. Always find me on Twitter @_Kaner and at Locked On Vols. Appreciate you everydayers for chiming in for the mailbag show yesterday. I had some good questions in there, and thank you guys so much for subscribing and watching to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and downloading us wherever you get your podcast. Like I said in the cold open, Tennessee in the NCAA hearing is set to begin later this morning, really, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it will go over the course of the next 3 days. Might wrap up in 2 days, but we'll have to see what kind of is the deal. Where are we at this point stage in the game? I'm going to kind of preview, set the scene for that in segment number 1. Josh Ward with Award Wednesdays coming up in segment 2. And then Tennessee coming in where in the ESPN FPI rankings. Remember, FPI, Football Power Index, and I'll go over what that means if you're unfamiliar and all that good stuff. That is your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. So, it's Tennessee, Jeremy Pruitt, it's Donde Plowman, it's the NCAA, Derek Ansley, some of the other assistants that were messed up in all this NCAA investigation over the past couple years, such as names are escaping me right now. The former tight ends coach, everybody called him Moose. Him and the former outside linebackers coach, and they're back coaching high school. One's at Valdosta State, one's at IMG Academy. They've already come to settlements with the NCAA really on what would be show causes and all that. But Tennessee's obviously disputing one of its claims. I'll get to that in a moment. Jeremy Pruitt is disclaiming a lot of the stuff, coming up against him, and everybody's just trying to move forward and put this all past them. So what does that mean right now for Tennessee? Well, let's give a little bit of a timeline of kind of what went down. Let's go all the way back to November 13th, 2020. Chancellor Donde Plowman of Tennessee receives verbal allegations of recruiting violations against Jeremy Pruitt and staff she deems credible. November 19th, just about a week later, University Office of General Conduct starts a formal inquiry into Pruitt and the football program. Fast forward to January 18th, 2021, head coach Jeremy Pruitt, 9 other football employees, including assistants Brian Niedermeyer, there we go, Shelton Felton, there we go. Those are those two guys I couldn't remember their names a moment ago. You got to remember, guys, I got a lot of information going through this noggin, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the tool shed to begin with, right? They're all fired for cause. Phillip Fulmer steps down as UT Athletics Director. January 21, 2021, and Danny White is hired as the new AD after an accelerated search by Chancellor Donde Plowman and University President Randy Boyd. January 27th, 2021, that's a busy week. Josh Heupel is hired by Danny White to follow him from Central Florida to be Tennessee's new football coach. November 4th, 2021, VolQuest reports Tennessee will not self-impose a bowl ban. Tennessee accepts a bid to the Music City Bowl a month later following a 7-win regular season. Fast forward all the way to this past summer, July 22nd, 2022. Your boy was on his bachelor party trip about to watch the Atlanta Braves, and the notice of allegations rolled in. Tennessee received notice of allegations from the NCAA detailing 18 Level 1 infractions that included almost $60,000 of cash or gifts provided to players and families by Pruitt, his wife, numerous coaches, recruiting staff, and at least one other booster. And then that brings us to February 28th, 2023. Niedermeyer, Felton, former director of player personnel Drew Hughes, and recruiting office employee Michael Magnus all agree to penalties from the NCAA, which includes a show cause of penalties ranging from 3 to 5 years. So the assistants, the off-the-field staffers that were involved in this mess, they've already come to an agreement with the NCAA, and they're moving on with their punishments. They're moving on with life, coaching high school and all that good stuff. Coaching at some, by the way, If you're not familiar with IMG Academy, well, there's a lot of Division I athletes that come from IMG Academy, and Valdosta is one of the best high school football programs in the country. And we actually played at Division II. Remember, we actually played a playoff game down at Valdosta High School because the college plays at the high school. There's a Valdosta State College and a Valdosta State High School. The college, if I'm not mistaken, plays at the high school. That's how big it is, right? So that kind of brings us where we are today. And then it was reported a couple months ago that there would be, Tennessee and the NCAA still could not come to an understanding, and they would go in front of a hearing and kind of try to settle all this out and move on. So the biggest deal with Tennessee is during the notice of allegations for the NCAA, it was hit with 18 level 1 infractions. Tennessee has accepted 17 of those, all right? They said, all right, sure, we did that, yada, yada. We're going to self-reduce some scholarships, self-reduce some recruiting days, all that type of stuff, which it's been doing the past couple of years. But one of those level 1 violations, Tennessee did not accept, and that was the failure to monitor rate. And so that is what Tennessee is disputing here in Cincinnati beginning today and over the course of the next couple of days. Let's go back and read that notice of allegations from the NCAA that was sent out last July. Quote, in every step of this process, we took quick and decisive actions that exemplified the longstanding values the NCAA reiterated in the membership's new constitution. The university hired outside counsel to fully investigate the allegations about the football program, acted promptly to terminate the employment of football coaches and staff members, and shared our conclusions with the NCAA enforcement staff. This is actually from the University of Tennessee and what they responded to it. The NCAA Division I Board of Directors recently endorsed significant reforms to infractions process proposed by the Transformation Committee, including clearly and meaningfully insensitizing the type of response institutional actions we took in this case: self-detection, reporting, self-accountability, the active involvement of the institution's chief executive. The NCAA enforcement staff recognized the university's extraordinary cooperation in this case, and stated that the actions taken by the institution during the investigation to be the standard for any institutional inquiries into the potential violations. So that's kind of Tennessee's response to the notice of allegations. That notice of allegations the NCAA put out pretty much said all that stuff, like, hey, Tennessee's been a ball player, Tennessee's done this, Tennessee's done that. If you are ever in trouble, follow Tennessee's lead. It's kind of funny because, again, I truly don't believe the NCAA holds much power anymore. I really don't. And I don't believe the NCAA is trying to show up Tennessee right now. I do think the NCAA is trying to act like the professional organization that it tries to be. It's checking all the right boxes. It's going through procedure. Let's not forget Tennessee paid over $21 million in this entire investigation itself. Tennessee hired outside lawyers. Tennessee invited the NCAA to sit in on these meetings. That was the NCAA's inquiry, right? That was their investigation. It was jumping on the bandwagon of outside lawyers and firms that the University of Tennessee were paying during this whole time. Tennessee did self-impose some recruiting violations and all that, but they were smart with how they do it. More on that in another show maybe. But Tennessee's played ball here. They've done everything they possibly could do, and I'll say this, I'm not expecting it, but if some type of bowl ban comes from this hearing this week, Tennessee will go to court and sue the hell out of the NCAA. Just point blank. That's what's going to happen. I'm not expecting that to happen, but if they try to hit Tennessee with a bowl ban, which they've already come out and said that they don't really want to punish student athletes who are here now who weren't here then, that they didn't want to do that, and so that wasn't what they were going to try to do, although they did say that with the Oklahoma State basketball team as well, and they hit Oklahoma State with a penalty, one loss of postseason or whatever. So I don't think that's going to happen. We'll see exactly what's going to happen, but if they try to threaten Tennessee with a bowl ban of any sorts, Tennessee will fight that like crazy, and this will go to an actual, this will go to court for sure. So we'll see what comes of it. I think this is more to do with NCAA needs some good grace here. They need to look like that they were the adult in the room. They need to save some face, and so they want this over. The University of Tennessee obviously wants this over in the worst way because they've been dealing with this for the last 3 years almost. They've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars. They've already self-imposed. They cleaned house. They did everything they possibly wanted to do. So Tennessee wants to move on. The NCAA wants to move on, and so that's why I truly believe getting in front of everybody face-to-face, talking, all that type of stuff, it's going to kind of wrap up this thing here in the next couple of days. Now, having said all that, there was an order on this to where no one can talk about it until not the findings, but the final resolution is made public. So nobody in this hearing, nobody on Tennessee's side, nobody on the NCAA side can publicly speak on the final conclusions and resolutions until 6 to 8 weeks, whenever it becomes public. So it's gonna, we'll see if the NCAA leaks anything. We'll see if any of us can figure anything out. But publicly, no one can talk about this until the NCAA releases the final conclusions, if you will, and that's going to be in 6 to 8 weeks. So we will see. VolQuest will have a representative up there in Cincinnati this week, and so stay dialed into VolQuest.com and see what's going on, and see if there's anything worth reporting at all, just to be completely honest. As far as Jeremy Pruitt, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we got to go, but Jeremy Pruitt just wants to get back into the field. He wants to be back coaching. Now, I think that he just wants to be coaching. Where does he want to coach? He wants to be at Alabama. I think one day he wants to be the head coach at Alabama. Now, that's obviously not going to happen for a little while because he's going to be hit with a head coaching show cause of 3 to 5 years. But he wants to be the defensive coordinator in Alabama. That job opened up this past offseason, and he couldn't get it. He just wants to be back into the game, tried the NFL route, didn't really like it a whole lot. That's still an option. We'll see. I would imagine that Jeremy Pruitt is going to go the Hugh Freeze route and just try to get a head coaching show cause. That way he can get back into the college game and all that. As far as Derek Ansley, who is also a part of this, we'll see if he shows up. Derek Ansley really just can say deuces. I don't really care. I have no plans to go back to college. He is the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers right now and doing really well. Even if he gets fired from that job, like so many NFL assistants and coaches do, no matter what level you're in, you're gonna stay in that loop, right? You'll go coach DBs for the Minnesota Vikings or whatever you want. You want to keep all your options open. So we'll see if he zooms in or anything, but we'll see if he even has a presence at this hearing because, of course, he is the one that is involved in this as well. So that's a little bit of the primer. And again, all this goes back, and I don't want to condone, or I don't want to, say cheating's not a big deal because it is. You always want to follow the rules, but guys, this is all over $60,000. $60,000. Did you hear me? This is all over $60,000. There's millions that have gone under the table for 30 years in college football, and this is all over $60,000. It just, that part of the whole thing will never, ever crack me up. It just cracks me up every single time. So we'll see what comes from this NCAA hearing. It is in Cincinnati, and we'll keep you updated as much as we can right here on Locked On Vols. Hey, coming up, Josh Ward here for a little Ward Wednesday action. FPI, where does Tennessee rank in that? That is coming up here for the rest of the show. Grand slams, no-hitters, double plays, they are back, and there's no better place to get in all that MLB action than at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. And that's right, because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Don't miss your chance at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 back when you join FanDuel.com today. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. It's Wednesday. It's that time of the week for a little Ward Wednesday action. Josh Ward, host of 99.1 The Sports Animals, Josh and Swain, noon to 3. Josh, what's up, brother?
Eric, good to see you. Post-spring now. We head into the treacherous months waiting for the start of college football.
We truly are, if you think about it. We are very much in that dead area now. You got the NFL draft for the next week and a half. But you always feel like, oh, man, now we got to really struggle for content. But you always feel like content's there, sure. But, It is the, all right, let's get to football season type of the offseason now with spring practice over.
Yeah, and there will be a lot of stuff that still happens. The draft is more notable for Tennessee fans to follow, with Hendon Hooker getting more first-round talk. Darnell Wright is going to be a first-rounder. It looks like all but wrapped up at this point. And then other guys that will fall in somewhere first, second, third round for Tennessee fans to keep up with. So that and recruiting, and we'll see how things play out with baseball. The last few weeks have not been good, and there's basketball to get figured out with the roster here over the next few weeks. So there is a lot that will happen, then some unexpected things. And I think a lot of Tennessee fans are following other programs, hoping for some negative news that can pop up. So the shoe has been on the other foot, which fans have not minded in that regard.
Yeah, kind of on that note, you think about Tennessee spring practice. I mean, they're really, I've done, I'm very popular, so I've done like radio hit after radio hit after radio hit this week about the orange and white game. I don't know if you understand that live, but I do. And they continue to say, like, a couple of them, like, hey, I'm kidding, by the way, but they say, hey, there's not a lot of news out there about Tennessee spring practice, right? It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of buzz, but that's a good thing, right? I mean, I would say that's a good thing.
Yeah, Mr. Popular, I agree. I think that's a good thing for Tennessee, that you don't have negative headlines around Tennessee football. I think there is conversation about offensive line position battles and defensive back position competition that is real, but that's something that's only going to interest Tennessee fans. It's not going to catch the eyes or the ears of Georgia and Florida fans. So headlines that would come out of Tennessee right now, if you're looking for talk elsewhere, it's probably going to be negative, unless it's something like Hendon Hooker as a first-round prospect, and that creates some conversation around Tennessee's offense. And there was a little back and forth between Tennessee fans and Georgia fans over that, which I think is great for college football, because a lot of it is about fan passion and hating your rival or going against your rival. And Georgia on the field has the upper hand, obviously, based on how the last few years have gone. But a lot of people are looking at that Georgia-Tennessee game in November, this upcoming season, saying that's the one to watch for the Bulldogs. And they have to be ready for some other games. Look at how they almost lost to Missouri last year. But in terms of how things are projected, Tennessee projects as maybe the toughest game for Georgia this upcoming season. Overall, though, it's a calm time for Tennessee football. There's a little outside conversation about a quarterback battle inside the facility. Internally with Tennessee's camp, there's no conversation about that. Joe is QB1, Nico is QB2.
Yeah, look at Texas right now, and everybody's freaking out and pulling their hair out about Arch Manning's spring game performance when the kid's been on campus for, again, like 14 practices. Now, I'm not saying Arch Manning is going to be a college football Hall of Famer and a first-round draft pick. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as his uncles. But again, like, I try to compare that to Nico. Like, the talk coming out of the spring game for Tennessee's Nico Iamaleava was, oh, wow, made that one throw look really, really good.
Yeah.
Escapability. And like, I agree with all that. But, like, could you imagine if that was to talk about Nico and we're sitting here like, guys, it's been 2 weeks. Like, chill. Like, I'm saying the talk, you don't want that talk like Texas is getting right now.
Yeah, that's right. And he's Arch. He's going to get attention, and he plays at Texas, which is going to get attention. Arch also doesn't have any pressure similar to Nico right now. Neither guy is the starter. Quinn Ewers is the starter at Texas. Joe Milton is the starter at Tennessee. So both of those players have time to develop. We're talking about high school seniors. Keep that in mind when we talk about these players. They are high school seniors who enrolled early, so they are in college now, but that's where they are in their development. There's a long way to go. I don't know which quarterback will end up being better. There is a case to make for both players. Both schools should be very excited about the future of their freshman quarterbacks. Tennessee should be very excited about Nico, and is. And I think the people behind the scenes at Texas are very excited. I'm guessing most Texas fans are still excited about what Arch will be. Neither guy is ready to be a high-level quarterback right now. That could change even this upcoming fall. But right now, both have a lot to work on to be the quarterbacks they're projected to be. Tennessee fans are excited about Nico. That throw to Ethan Davis is a reminder of his skill set and what he's able to do. But he has a lot to learn, which is supposed to be the case.
Sarkisian named Quinn Ewers the starting quarterback after the spring game. I think it was a brilliant move. Should Josh Heupel have done, maybe not after the spring game, but should Josh Heupel make an early announcement like, hey, Joe's our guy? Even though, again, you and I and everybody that follows Tennessee football here from the inside know 100%, or really anybody that follows Tennessee football probably knows Joe Milton is the guy. But again, you had the public quarterback competition comments during the Orange Bowl week.
Yeah, I would say yes if pressed on, okay, who's your QB1? If you're playing a game today, and of course the coach's response says, well, we don't play a game today. But I would then just spin it the other way. If we had to play a game today, Joe is our QB1. And I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think there's any controversy to doing that, because of the way that Joe and Nico have talked about. Nico, during the spring, talked about being in the role that Milton was this past fall when Hendon Hooker was the starter and Joe Milton was the backup, providing support and staying ready if needed. Nico knows that if they played a game today or when they get to fall camp and they're preparing for Virginia in the opener coming up in a little more than 4 months, that Joe Milton will be preparing as the starter. All their teammates know that. So it's one thing if you say something publicly that then surprises the players, but that would be no surprise. But, I guess have that conversation if you haven't specifically. It's just so obvious to everybody who's paying attention.
And I don't know if it's similar to like Tennessee's, fan base of Texas. And I'm not trying to make this a Texas Longhorn segment, but like if their whole fan base knows like, hey, it's going to be Quinn the entire time. But if not, if there was kind of speculation and everything, it's like, what a job by Sark saying, hey, Ewers is my guy. That way you don't have a summer of build up for something that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think sometimes holding off on naming the guy makes sense if you are trying to keep guys on campus, if you're worried about one transferring out. That's a conversation at Georgia right now because you have Brock Vandagriff who wants to be the guy. Carson Beck's probably the leader right there. So at Georgia, Kirby Smart holding off makes some sense. Brock could still take off, though. Yeah, he seems to want an answer. He wants some clarification, and I don't know why that would come in the next 12 days in that transfer portal window, but Nico's not going anywhere, and there's no concern. And fans paying attention know that Joe is QB1, and Nico is the backup who's preparing, developing, and could be needed at this point, but everybody at Tennessee hopes Joe has a great season, stays healthy, and that Nico is able to prepare to be the starter in 2024.
Biggest takeaways from spring practice, who were some newcomers, maybe some young guys that you were impressed with having seen them or just all the chatter?
Well, some of the obvious names are Cam Seldon at running back, looks the part, looks like a guy that should have been highly touted because of his size and his speed, and that showed up on Saturday. It backs up some of the behind-the-scenes talk. The play by Ethan Davis apparently backs up what was happening in practice that we weren't able to see, according to Josh Heupel, had the injury, but at that position where they're trying to build some depth with Princeton Fant gone, that's somebody to be excited about what he could become. On defense, Arion Carter, I think we've talked about him in this segment weekly. You've talked about him a lot for good reason. He's a guy that looks like he's going to be able to play potentially very early in the SEC. And then on the freshman defensive backside, those guys are going to have a chance to at least push some veterans, maybe help right away. Some of the names that have stood out, Jordan Matthews, Ricky Gibson, but that's a talented group. Christian Conyer looks the part. So they recruited and really coveted those guys that they signed in the defensive backfield for obvious reason, because they looked the part to play in the SEC, and Tennessee needed increased competition. I think that took place this past spring via the transfer portal and the recruiting process.
You got the Josh and Swain newsletter coming out every single Friday morning. What else is coming up on the show this week, noon to 3 on the Sports Animal?
Yeah, appreciate that. If you go to joshandswain.com, you can subscribe for free. It's in your inbox every Friday and every day, Monday through Friday. Swain and I are talking Tennessee football, looking ahead to the offseason. Tennessee Hoops watch is on with the roster as we're now in the offseason there, plus everything else going on in the sports world. So 12 to 3 every weekday on the Sports Animal.
All right, guys and gals, we won't waste much time here in segment number 3, but I did want to bring to your attention the FPI rankings and projections for these college football teams. That's over at ESPN.com. And where does Tennessee rank in this? Well, remember, Football Power Index, it is essentially, it breaks down, it's a season-long ratings and projection system. It's presently relies on past performance on offense and defense, returning and transfer portal production, and past recruiting data for players on the roster to form a rating. They go on and use those ratings to simulate the season 20,000 times, resulting in their projections. So they're weighing these out differently by returning production lost, the last 3 recruiting cycles, what you got from the transfer portal, what you lost from the transfer portal, all that type of stuff. And then they put all that into a system. They simulate it 20,000 times per each team, and they come out with their projections, and that's kind of, where they are. Right now, Tennessee ranks as the number 12 team in the country in terms of the highest FPI ranking. That is at 15.2. Couldn't tell you what that 15.2 means, but it's at 15.2. It is the 4th highest team from the Southeastern Conference in these national FPI rankings. Alabama is at 2nd, Georgia is at 3rd, LSU is at 4th, and then you go all the way down to number 12 at Tennessee, and that is the next highest team from the Southeastern Conference. Ole Miss is at 16. Florida is tied for 18th with Texas A&M. And then those are all the teams from the Southeastern Conference. So let's look at what exactly the FPI projects for the University of Tennessee. Well, Tennessee is here, and it has an FPI ranking of 15.2. And again, I don't really know how they come up with that number, to be completely honest with you. But number one in the country is Ohio State, and it's at 31.5. So almost double what Tennessee is there at 50, or actually over double what Tennessee is there at 15.2. Alabama is number 2 at 28.2. LSU's 3 or 4 at 22.1. But what this means is for Tennessee, you take the number of games that you play in a season, that is 12 games, and the projected win-loss total for the University of Tennessee, according to ESPN's FPI ranking or projections, is 8.2 wins to 3.9 losses. So what it's saying there is Tennessee is projected to go 8-4 this year and the year of 2023. So I think Tennessee can win 9 games, and so that's kind of right on that. That looks like it. I would be a game over what the FPI projects right now, but that's not my official thing. But I think Tennessee can certainly win 9 games. But 8.2 to 3.9, so you're looking, according to the ESPN FPI, at an 8-4 season. A percentage of winning out, meaning going undefeated, Tennessee has a 0% chance of going undefeated, according to the ESPN FPI. And I'm looking at the teams in front of them, like Ohio State has a 34.3% chance of going undefeated, Alabama 13%, Georgia 22%, LSU 1.2%. I mean, all these teams have at least something, right? Notre Dame a 1.3%, Penn State 0.9%. Tennessee is the first one that has 0.00000% chance to go undefeated. I guess that's what you get when you play in the same division as the back-to-back national champions. You have Alabama on the roster every single year. You have A&M coming to Neyland Stadium this year. Hey, which is life in the SEC, right? A percentage to get to 6 wins, Tennessee is projected or has a 98.1% chance of reaching at least 6 wins. Winning the division, Tennessee is given a 5.4% chance of winning the SEC East. Winning the SEC outright, Tennessee is given a 1.2% chance of doing just that. Tennessee is given a 2.5% chance of making the 4-team playoff. Tennessee is given a 0.7% chance, so less than 1%, of making the national championship game. And Tennessee is given, here we go, 0.2% chance to win the 2023 college football national championship. So you're telling me there's a chance. Well, that's what ESPN's FPI rankings are and projections are saying about Tennessee. These will change throughout the year, and it'll change a couple more times throughout the offseason once we learn more and more and more about each and every single team. But that's kind of where it is right now. And to be completely honest with you, Tennessee is always, even when Tennessee was bad the last couple of years, or before Heupel got here, Tennessee's always had a pretty high FPI ranking in the offseason because we always not make a big deal about it, but it always draws us to our attention, #content. It's what you do with that FPI ranking, and that's where it comes in with player development. Tennessee had a lot of returning players that played a whole lot of football during the Jeremy Pruitt era, but it didn't translate into wins because player development for the most part was just not there. So far, player development in terms of those returning roster production, it's been really good under Josh Heupel and his staff. They've been able to really take these guys and turn them into football players, and they've been doing a pretty good job in that regard. So that's kind of what that looks like a little bit. Tennessee given a 0.2% chance to win the national championship. Now, these percentages will go up, at least the percentages to make the college football playoff, because remember, 2024 is the last year with the 14 playoff. Now it's going to expand to 12 teams, and the percentages will go up for Tennessee, but they'll also go up for everybody else. I mean, look at a team like Ohio State or, Alabama or somebody that's pretty much set to win their conference each and every year. I mean, with a 12-team playoff, you can lose 3 games and still get in, right, in some situations. And so a team like Alabama or Ohio State or Georgia or whoever that's picked to win the Big Ten or the SEC, that Clemson of old, by a large margin that year, they're going to have like an 80% chance to get in the college football playoff when it expands to 12 teams. So we'll see. That's the thing about 12 teams. That's giving you a lot of room for error. A lot of teams with double losses, 2 losses, and maybe even some teams with a high strength of schedule and all that type of stuff. They'll get in with 3 losses. There's been a couple of teams that have been close with 3 losses. LSU this past year, at least the path was there, right? The path was there to get into the college football playoff, and with more with more at-large bids, a team like LSU, before it lost in the SEC championship game, could have potentially got in. So we'll see what happens. But that is what the College Football Power Index looks like. Again, I'll run down these teams in front of Tennessee. Number 1, according to ESPN, is Ohio State. 2 is Alabama. 3 is Georgia. 4 is LSU. 5 is Texas. 6 is Michigan. 7 is USC. 8 is Clemson. Yikes. 9 is Notre Dame. 10 is Penn State. 11 is Oklahoma. And 12 is Tennessee. Following Tennessee in the top 15 is Oregon, Florida State, and Utah, with Ole Miss coming in at 16 and Florida tied for 18th. That'll do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Had a whole lot of fun with you guys breaking down what's to come with the NCAA hearing in Cincinnati, Ohio. Talking with Josh Ward, looking at the FBI projections for Tennessee and the rest of college football. And you can get more of this type of content every single day right here at Locked On Vols. Everydayers, appreciate you. Shout out to you guys. Salute. Appreciate all you guys and gals that tune in every single day here on Locked On Vols. I see you and I appreciate you. If you're new to the show, hey, hope you come back. If you liked it, let's subscribe to that Locked On Vols YouTube channel. That's how I get paid, so I really, really do appreciate that. And continue to download wherever you listen to your podcast. Don't just listen. Subscribe and download on Apple Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, cha-ching, that's how your boy can continue doing this for a living, and how I will continue to be allowed to do this with with a new wife, right? A year ago, it was just me calling the shots, and I don't call any shots anymore. Appreciate you guys as always, and hey, let's do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.